Every town has a dark side. In Bethesda, Maryland, an upscale shopping district where luxury boutiques and tech stores line the streets, well, crime feels like a world away. But on a March morning back in 2011, inside a trendy yoga apparel store, police walked into a crime scene so brutal it was hard to comprehend. At first, it looked like a robbery gone wrong, but the deeper investigators dug, the clearer it became. This wasn't random. And what unfolded inside those walls was something far more deliberate and far more disturbing. And hey guys, it's Andrew. Welcome back to Everytown. Today, we're diving into a shocking act of violence and the unsettling cover-up that came right after. So, let's head down to the old line state and dive into the Lululemon murder. It was the morning of March 12, 2011, when store manager Rachel Ortley arrived to open the Lululemon Athletica in Bethesda. Everything up to that point had been routine until she reached for the front door. It was unlocked. In a luxury shop in one of the wealthiest shopping districts in the DC area, well, that meant one of two things. Somebody had either seriously messed up or something terrible had happened. Rachel pushed the door open and stepped inside. At first glance, the store looked normal, but as her eyes adjusted, she noticed signs of chaos. A clothing rack was toppled, and shirts littered the floor out back, torn from their hangers. Merchandise was scattered like a storm had blown through. Her stomach dropped, and she bolted back outside to call 911. And that's when she noticed Ryan, a man waiting in line for the brand new iPad at the Apple store next door. He'd been standing there for over an hour and hadn't seen a single person go in or out of Lululemon. When Rachel explained what she'd found, Ryan offered to go inside with her to take a look around. And together, they stepped back into the store. The cash registers were open and emptied. Receipts littered the counters and floor, as if someone had mistaken them for cash and discarded them in frustration. And then, the blood. And we're not talking just a few droplets. Trails, smears, footprints. Evidence that someone had been dragged. Prints led into different rooms, and some ended abruptly at a sink as if the killer had washed off. On one wall, a bloody handprint marked where someone had tried and failed to push themselves up.
Yes, I just called 911 to come, and there's two dead people in the back of my store. There's a woman that's alive, and she's breathing.
Tied up?
She's tied up. One person seems dead, and the other person is breathing.
Jana Murray, face down in a pool of blood, a rope tied around her neck. She was already gone. And then came something unexpected, the sound of breathing, faint and ragged, coming from the employee bathroom. Inside there, Ryan found Brittany Norwood, barely conscious, zip ties binding her wrists above her head and her ankles together. She was smeared with blood and her skin marked with cuts. A Lululemon headband was knotted around her neck. And within minutes, the store was swarming with police and paramedics. Half rushed to free Brittany, cutting her restraints and tending to her wounds, and the other half turned to Jana. But there was nothing to be done. And it looked like a nightmare come true. One woman slaughtered, another barely alive. To everybody watching, it appeared that Brittany Norwood was lucky to have survived a brutal attack by masked intruders. But the truth was far darker. And what looked like random violence was actually something else entirely. If you're still overpaying for wireless, it's time to say yes to saying no. At Mint Mobile, their favorite word is no. No contracts, no monthly bills, no overages, no hidden fees, no BS. I switched because my old carrier kept sneaking in fees and my bill was ridiculous. And now I'm paying just $15 a month and getting better service, so you should too. With Mint, plans start at $15 a month, and every plan includes high-speed data plus unlimited talk and text on the nation's largest 5G network. Keep the phone you already love, bring your number and all your contacts move with you. Setup took me a few minutes and I was saving real money immediately, like cutting my bill by more than half compared to my old provider, without sacrificing coverage or speed. Ready to say yes to saying no? Make the switch at mintmobile.com/everytown. That's mintmobile.com/everytown. Upfront payment of $45 required, equivalent to $15 a month. Limited time new customer offer for first 3 months only. Speeds may slow above 35 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details. To really understand how this whole story spiraled into horror, we have to start with the two young women at the center of it all. Jana Murray, a rising star with everything ahead of her, and Brittany Norwood, a woman whose hidden secrets were about to shatter both of their lives. Now, Jana was born on November 22nd, 1980, down in Texas, and from the start, she always stood out. Her family called her Smile Megawatt, the kind of grin that was genuinely infectious. She was the rare type who seemed to have it all. Smart without being arrogant, athletic without being obsessive, and ambitious without stepping on anyone to get ahead. But Jana wasn't just about success, she was about living. While most kids only talked about wanting to travel, Jana actually did it. By her 20s, she had already set foot on nearly every continent, with only Antarctica left on her list. She studied abroad in Spain and beyond, hungry to learn and excited to experience what the world had to offer. Eventually, her journey led her to Washington, D.C., where she enrolled at Johns Hopkins University, where she was chasing 2 degrees, business and communications, with plans for an MBA that would put her exactly where she wanted to be. She networked, went to seminars, pushed herself, and thrived. And then there was Fraser, the boyfriend, who seemed like her perfect match. Friends described them as the couple that made you believe in love. And what Jana didn't know is that Fraser had already started shopping for an engagement ring, planning a future that was just weeks away from becoming reality. To help pay her way, Jana took a job at Lululemon. On the surface, it was just a retail gig, but for Jana, it fit better than a pair of their leggings. The brand's focus on wellness and active living matched her own philosophy, so she didn't just work there, she believed in what it stood for. Co-workers loved her energy and her willingness to help and the way she made even the boring shifts easier. Management noticed too, promoting her to supervisor and handing her a key to the store. By early 2011, everything was aligning. Her MBA nearly complete, a loving relationship with her boyfriend, a promising career path, was the kind of life people dream about. But in this life, sometimes no matter how hard you work and plan, you can cross paths with the wrong person, and there's nothing you can do about it. And Jana's path was about to collide with someone else's, someone whose life was built on lies and desperation. And that someone was Brittany. Norwood joined the Bethesda Lululemon store in early February of 2011, just 6 weeks before the murder. She was hired as a part-time sales associate, the same kind of entry-level role Jana had once started in before quickly rising through the ranks. At first glance, Brittany seemed like a perfect fit for the Lululemon culture. And she was born on May 19th of 1982 in Seattle, into what most would call an ideal family. One of 9 children, she grew up in a household centered around education, discipline, and support. Her parents were well educated, Her father ran his own business, and the family had enough means to provide opportunities for all 9 kids. And like Jana, Brittany did pretty well in school. She was small in stature, but strong and athletic, with a particular love for soccer. And she was good enough to play Division I at Stony Brook University in New York, an achievement she was proud of. Her dream was to become a personal trainer and eventually open her own gym. For her, Lululemon felt like a stepping stone, a way to blend her passion for fitness while gathering more experience in the business side of things. As her supervisor, Jana helped train Brittany, showing her the ropes and guiding her through those first weeks. To anyone watching, there was no tension or friction or warning signs. The two seemed to get along just fine. But appearances are deceiving. While coworkers saw the version of Brittany she wanted them to see, they had no idea about the troubling pattern of behavior that had been following her for years. Secrets that would soon come to the surface in the most violent way imaginable. The first cracks in Brittany's image showed up back in her college soccer days. She had the talent to make the D1 team, a big deal, but soon after she joined, teammates started noticing things disappearing from the locker room. At first it was small, almost forgettable. A tube of lip gloss here, a $10 bill there, a pair of earrings someone thought they'd misplaced. But soon the pattern became too obvious to miss. Items only vanished whenever Brittany was around. When the team finally confronted her, the girl broke down in tears. She admitted to stealing, apologized, promised it would never happen again. And some teammates wanted to believe her and give her another chance, but trust like that, once broken, is hard to repair. Especially in team sports, where everyone is supposed to work together as a unit with a common goal. And Brittany had made herself the ugly duckling, and slowly she was pushed out, left off the field, and left out of social circles, until she eventually just quit. And for someone who had built her identity around being an athlete, losing her place on the team was devastating. It should have been a wake-up call, but it wasn't. The behavior followed her. Brittany had actually worked at another Lululemon store before Bethesda, and guess what she was fired for?
As Brittany starts, that's when they start having all these incidents of shoplifting. Items are disappearing, cash is disappearing, and she's like the only new person. So they all suspected her of stealing, but they could never prove it.
The pattern never changed, though. Steal, get caught, cry, apologize, promise to do better, and then move on and do it again. It wasn't about money. Her family was well off, and she had access to employee discounts. For Brittany, the theft seemed to come from somewhere else. The rush of getting away with it, or a compulsion she couldn't control. But in February 2011, none of her co-workers knew any of this. To them, she was just another new hire trying to make a good impression. And Jana, always eager to welcome new employees, went out of her way to help Brittany settle in. And the two worked side by side, opening and closing the store together, dealing with customers, stocking merchandise. But Brittany couldn't keep her sticky little fingers to herself, and per usual, started to steal again, just like always. Only this time, someone was about to notice, and that someone was Jana. March 11th, 2011, a Friday night at the bustling Bethesda Row shopping center. The Lululemon store had been packed with weekend shoppers, stocking up on their high-end workout gear. By closing time, only 2 employees remained inside, Jana and Brittany. Now, closing shifts followed a familiar rhythm. Cleaning up, restocking shelves, counting the register, and finally, the mandatory bag checks. At Lululemon, every employee, from the newest hire to the store manager, had their bags checked before leaving. It wasn't optional and it wasn't personal, it was routine. But that night, when Jana looked inside Brittany's bag, routine turned into a confrontation. Tucked away was a pair of Lululemon leggings that hadn't been paid for. And for those unfamiliar, Lululemon leggings don't come cheap, $100 to $140 a pair. And finding them hidden in an employee's bag was a serious violation, the kind of discovery that could end a career. And Jana liked Brittany, had trained her, and probably wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt, but as supervisor, she also had a responsibility to the store and the rest of the staff who played by the rules. And she was put in a bad spot. In the end, there was really only one thing she could do. The store's alarms record showed both women left at 9:45 p.m. 6 minutes later, at 9:51, Jana phoned the store manager to report what she'd found.
She called me at 9:46. She asked me, did I sell Brittany some crops? And I was like, no. And she was like, because when I back checked Brittany, she found a pair of crops in there that still had the tags on.
The manager told her they'd handle it in the morning, and Jana hung up, unaware that she had just set events in motion that would end with her death. And for Brittany, that moment was devastating, and she had already been fired from the other location for stealing. Getting caught again wasn't just embarrassing, it threatened everything. Her dream of becoming a personal trainer, of opening her own gym, of building a life around fitness and health, all of it could vanish with a single theft report. And who would hire her if she became known as a repeat thief? Who would ever trust her? And in Brittany's mind, she couldn't let that happen. At 10:05 p.m., just 20 minutes after the store alarm had been set, it was turned off again, and someone with keys had come back to the store. And Brittany had called Jana with a story about needing to get something she'd left behind, and Jana, being the helpful person she was, agreed to drive back and let Brittany into the store.
Prosecutors say that Brittany Norwood lured Jana Murray back to the store after they had closed.
The next thing that happened took investigators weeks to figure out, but when they did, they discovered that the young woman they'd first seen as a victim was actually capable of something far more horrible than anyone could have imagined. At some point after Jana opened that store back up, Brittany snapped. The attack started in the front of the store but moved to the back rooms. Jana tried to run away, anywhere to seek safety, so she bolted to the back area where there was a fire exit, but she couldn't get away in time. She had actually gotten the key into that lock, but before she could turn it, Brittany caught up to her. Investigators would later find that key still there, blood on the door handle as well. It's hard to know exactly what went down in what order because in the end, Jana suffered at least 331 separate wounds.
At least 5 weapons were used according to the medical examiner: a knife, hammer, wrench, box cutters, a rope around her neck. Murray was alive throughout all of this until the last strike of a knife.
And the Apple Store employees next door who were closing up shop heard some commotion next door, but they just thought it was an argument between co-workers.
Yeah, we heard screaming, and so we go downstairs, and all of a sudden we hear a scream. Then I get closer to the wall, and I can hear what they're saying.
What are they saying?
So it was 2 females. One was hysterically crying, and the other one was like she was trying to talk to her, like, what's going on? The other girl eventually calms down and starts talking, but I don't hear. At that point, she's kind of mumbling.
Okay.
And then that's when I turn and it's like, oh, seems like there's drama going on.
Did you ever hear any other voices or just the two?
Two female ones.
Jana's body had several defensive wounds on her hands and arms that showed she had tried to protect herself. There were actually clumps of her own hair clenched in her hands, either from trying to shield her head or from Brittany dragging her around the store by her hair. The forensic doctor discovered that the real wound that killed her was a stab wound to the back of her neck that cut through her spinal cord. That means that she'd likely been alive for the majority of the attack before that. When it was finally over in that shopping center late at night, silence washed over the Lululemon store. Brittany stood in the back room surrounded by what she had done, and Jana's blood was everywhere, pooled on the floor, spattered on the walls, and tracked through multiple rooms. And Brittany had to figure out how to make this all go away. And she pulled it off before with those crocodile tears whenever she got caught stealing, so even though this was significantly more serious than that, maybe she could pull it off again. Really, what other choice did she have but to try? She needed to breathe for a moment, so for the next hour and a half, Brittany sat in Jana's car outside, planning the most elaborate lie of her life. When she figured it out, she went back into the store and started staging the scene. She emptied the cash registers, scattered merchandise around, and put on men's size 14 shoes to track footprints around the place in Jana's blood. This way, it wasn't her who did the killing. It was some masked men who came in and attacked. Then, she started working on herself because she couldn't have walked away unscathed if her coworker faced such violence. She took a knife and sliced into her own forehead, making sure it would bleed enough to look serious but not enough to be dangerous. Then she slashed her arms and legs with box cutters, being careful to avoid any major blood vessels. She also tied a Lululemon headband around her own neck and cut holes in her own leggings. Finally, she zip-tied her own hands above her head and her ankles together, and lay down on the bathroom floor and just waited. The next morning, the store manager, Rachel, arrived to open up the store. She noticed the front door unlocked, merchandise scattered, and quickly realized something was wrong. And when she and another employee entered, they discovered the horrific scene. Jana's body in the back room, and Brittany bound on the floor pretending to be a victim. When police arrived, sure enough, Brittany turned on the waterworks, as she had done so many times before. And she recounted the whole horrifying ordeal about two masked men who had attacked both women, essayed them, and killed Jana while sparing Brittany because she was quote-unquote more fun. And for a few days, the lie held. Detectives canvassed the area for two masked men who didn't exist while the real killer lay in a hospital bed, receiving sympathy and support for the trauma she had supposedly endured. But physical evidence doesn't lie, and soon the cracks in Brittany's story began to show. First, the footprints.
We had bloody shoe prints throughout the store that never left the store. We had zip ties that were in the store that were used on the victims as if somebody knew that they would be there.
If two masked men had really been there, as she claimed, well, there should have been multiple sets of men's prints. But there was only the one. It looked like the second man, whoever he was, must have floated around the store. And second, the injuries. And Jana's wounds were utterly catastrophic, the result of a prolonged and frenzied attack, something that was fueled by rage and not random violence. Brittany's wounds, by contrast, were shallow, controlled, the kind you get if, say, you were to, inflict them on yourself. And then there was Jana's car.
By this time, we found Jana's car, and we knew that the car was moved, and we knew there was blood in it, like on the gear shift, on the steering wheel. It's just a lot of weird stuff.
And she tried to explain it away as the men forcing her to move it, but it didn't make a whole lot of sense. The timeline didn't fit, and neither did the logic of her story. And so, from that, the lie unraveled pretty quickly. On March 18th, exactly 1 week after Jana Murray's murder, Brittany was arrested and charged.
Tonight we've arrested Brittany Norwood, age 27, for the murder of Jana Murray. Ms. Norwood was an employee of the store and is the woman originally thought to be the surviving victim.
Police say Norwood attempted to cover up the murder by pretending they were both beaten and sexually assaulted during a robbery.
Her trial began that November and lasted just 6 days. The evidence was overwhelming. Even Brittany's own defense team didn't bother denying she had killed Jana. Instead, they tried to spin it as a fight that simply got out of control. But prosecutors laid out every detail that proved this was no accident. The theft that sparked it, and the calculated staging afterward. The 90 minutes Brittany sat in Jana's car, crafting a cover story. Those self-inflicted wounds, and the hours she spent lying on that bathroom floor, rehearsing her role as the survivor. Every part of it spoke to planning, manipulation, and cold intent. In the end, the jury saw through her performance this time. Brittany Norwood was found guilty of first-degree murder. The judge then sentenced her to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Today, Norwood is 43 years old, locked away at the Maryland Correctional Institution for Women, where she will remain for the rest of her life. And Jana Murray, the woman she brutally stole from the world, will never grow older or finish her degree, never marry the man who was preparing to propose. Her future was ripped away in one of the most savage and senseless crimes Bethesda has ever seen. And that's the true legacy of this case. Not just the shocking brutality and just the lies, but the reminder that sometimes the darkest evil doesn't come from strangers in the night. Sometimes it comes from the person working right beside you. And so that's a wrap on today's episode of Everytown. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you want more from us, check out our exclusive secret vault of episodes over on patreon.com/scarymysteries, where we have multiple curated selections for you to choose from to scratch every true crime itch you might have. Remember to come on back next week, same place, same time, for another episode of Everytown, filled with strange and mysterious stories, because you never know. Maybe your town will be next.